latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Mike Rowe doesn't want to say I told you so, but, Mike Rowe, Dirty Jobs, Deadliest Catch. Mike Rowe told you so.
We've been telling kids for 15 years to code. Learn to code, we said. Yeah, well, AI is coming for the coders. They're not coming for the welders. They're not coming for the plumbers. They're not coming for the steam fitters or the pipe fitters or the HVAC. They're not coming for the electricians. You know, that Ideas Festival I was telling you about in Aspen, I sat there and listened to Larry Fink say we need 500,000 electricians in the next couple of years. Not hyperbole. This is me being the alarmist again. There's not a week that goes by in my humble little foundation. It's called MicroWorks. Shameless plug. We award work ethic scholarships every year, right, to kids who want to learn a skill that's in demand. These are trade school scholarships. Not a week goes by where I don't get a phone call from somebody like the Blue Forge Alliance, who oversees our maritime industrial base. That's 15,000 individual companies who are collectively charged with building and delivering 3 nuclear-powered subs to the Navy every year for 10 years, right? 2 Virginia, 1 Columbia class. Mind-bogglingly complicated. This guy calls and says, we're having a hell of a time finding tradespeople. Can you help? I said, I don't know, man. It's pretty skinny out there. How many do you need? He says 140,000. 140,000. Now, granted, over 7 years, but they need 80, 90,000 right now. These are our submarines, folks, right? Things go hypersonic, little sideways with China, Taiwan, whatever. Our aircraft carriers are no longer the point of the spear. They're vulnerable. Our submarines matter. And these guys have a pinch point because they can't find welders and electricians to get them built. Where are they? They said. We've looked everywhere. Do you know? I said, yeah, I know where they are. They're in the 8th grade, man. They're in the 8th grade. And the same thing, the automotive industry needs 80,000 collision repair and technicians. Energy, I don't even know what the number is. I hear 300, I hear 500,000 everywhere. So, not to filibuster, but that's the underlying thing that I just really hope people take from this conference. There is a clear and present freakout going on right now. I've heard from 6 governors in the last 6 months. I've heard from the heads of major companies in the country. It's like a memo has gone out. And people are realizing, you know something? We need to tend to this, both on the PR side and on the demographic. I don't know what to do about the retiring demography. I don't know what to do about 7 million able-bodied men choosing not to work. But I do know that the message to the young men and women in this state that a bright future awaits if they would but learn a skill that's in demand, that's going to resonate politically, that's going to resonate practically, it's going to move the needle.
Well, somebody who has picked up on the memo and expanded on what you heard from Mike Rowe to talk about how it's potentially impacting our politics. Actually, the conversation we were just having about New York City last hour, and Zohran Mamdani's surprise to some primary victory, is Mark Mills. He's the founder and executive director of the National Center for Energy Analytics, and he joins us now. Mark, thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate it.
It's great to join you. What a great, delicious, perfect summation of the reality from Mike Rowe. He's He's terrific.
Well, it's interesting too, and you in this piece that you wrote for City Journal, Mamdani, AI and the Job Apocalypse, and you're talking about, his appeal is you can, in part to that younger demographic that's upwardly mobile or would like to be. You can do it one of two ways. You can offer the Mike Rowe approach, go learn a marketable skill, and you're going to be employed making nuclear subs for as long as you want to be. Or you can say, hey, the state needs to intercede here and take care of me, which is Mamdani's offer.
Well, as I wrote on my piece, I mean, this is an unoriginal insight. When we're in a times of disruption and uncertainty, it does create anxieties. And this is a case where the bullets are real for the paranoid, right? They really are. We really are coming at you. And that's when socialism becomes much more seductive and attractive. People get nervous and worried. They want somebody they trust and like and smart to manage the disruption, to make everything okay. And it's hard to avoid that psychology. And usually it's a minority, but when a plurality, doesn't have to be a majority, when a plurality feels that way, significant group of people, then you get political revolutions. So that's frankly what worries me. I mean, I think it's the reason Mamdani is appealing. It's not because he is appealing, the personality, and he's a TikTok virtuoso and all that good stuff. He's tapping into something. This is ironic. Much as Trump tapped into the same kind of thing. Trump tapped into the disaffection, dissatisfactions in the flyover America, and both physically and intellectually. I mean, the class of Americans who felt like they were being flown over, even if they lived in some suburbs. He tapped into that, whether you like him or not. It was a preternaturally smart instinct. I think he's the same. I think he's got the same instinct, tapping into the same anxieties about this disruptions in markets and how, of course, AI, the boogeyman, making everything worse, and got to protect me.
Well, right. And I mean, of course, as we know from history, populism can manifest itself in various forms, some more productive than others. You point out, though, too, is look, I mean, the memo that's gone out from corporate America that Mike Rowe is talking about, it's not like they're being quiet about it. You talk about some Ford CEO, Jim Farley, that AI is going to replace literally half of all white collar workers in the United States. I mean, those are big statements and scary statements, not just to 18 to 29-year-olds. And the question I think a lot of people have is, how fast and, how fast am I potentially on the chopping block, more or less? The one thing I wanted to ask, though, in addition to that, and then I'll let you go, is, this idea of the nuclear subs, and we need welders and electricians and so forth. But I mean, at some point, AI and humanoids, they're going to replace a lot of people with trade skills too, aren't they?
Yes, on a limited basis. But this is a very old story, and then some people act like AI, that infamous, most dangerous words in English language. This time it's different.
Yeah,
it's always different in specifics, but not different in the broad impact. So robots will replace some manual labor, and they will therefore make those who are doing the difficult, if not impossible, for a long time to automate tasks more valuable. So the robots are an amplifier when it comes to the skilled trades, not a replacer, in my view. And I think if you look at how robots are being designed in that field, you would come to the same conclusion. So if you look at any labor domain, we have a confusion on two things. You don't get one-for-one replacements except in the exceptions, the famous Luddite exception. People, the automated loom in the Middle Ages, that's where the word came from. The Luddites, who were the manual loomers, protested. But the automated loom created more jobs and more manual jobs in the supply chain for the weaving in the garment industry in that time, just as it will do in the construction trades now. But in the time frames that matter, these revolutions they're scary. They don't happen overnight. And the problem with these silly statements, we're going to replace half of all white-collar workers. First, it's hyperbole. And second, it might indeed replace half of certain kinds of jobs, for sure, and they're white-collar jobs, just as, nobody does hand-drawn engineering diagrams. You don't have these, graphics designers hand-drawing engineering drawings. They're done by CAD/CAM.
Right.
But that's fine. They're gone. We don't have typists anymore. You know all the analogies. this hype around it replacing everything that misses the boat. In fact, the problem that we have here is that for every welder, we need hundreds of thousands of welders and electricians. In the businesses that do the real trades, those industries have white-collar jobs that are not replaceable. And so as those industries expand again, sort of think of the welder as the equivalent of the military, as the guy on the front line or the gal on the front line, the tip of the spear. You have a support infrastructure behind it. Yes, AI means the support infrastructure is lighter. So, if you used to be one welder would have to have 5 support people behind it, let's just say. Now it's 2. All right? But it's a net new 2 jobs. That's the point, right? It's generating job growth in a productive way. So you get more welders with less overhead. That means the welder gets paid more. You've created net new jobs. This is how markets really work, as opposed to these silly hand waves about all these jobs are gone. Yes, jobs get eaten and new ones are created.
Right. Creative destruction is always scary, but that's part of growth and advancement, no question. I wonder what your take is on all of the discussion and debate, and including how genuine it really is, about regulating the development of AI, sort of at the macro level, because you provided it. There's an alternative way to go too, which is the approach that we generally took to the rise of personal computers and smartphones. Yeah.
Well, first, I'm being a Reagan baby, so to speak. When I was a very young man, I worked in that White House science office, and so I confess being imprinted by the Reagan philosophy, which is not a new one, which is that I don't believe that there's anybody in any government smart enough to know what the future looks like. Mm-hmm. And regulators, especially who do heavy-handed regulation, they essentially adopt the position that we know what the outcome should be from a new technology. That doesn't mean there shouldn't be regulations. Guardrails around new technologies always are. We always create regulatory guardrails. But the guardrail approach is really different from a heavy-handed regulatory approach of picking winners and losers, being very specific. And I would say, while I'm not a lawyer, I've hung out with a lot of them over the decades, I would say that for the majority of things that people worry about, established laws and regulations are applicable to the kinds of malfeasance or misuse of any technology, even AI. So the first order of business is to look at how current regulations law can properly apply to what businesses do with a new tool, as opposed to run around with hair on fire, say we've got to constrain this thing. First, that would be bad economically, but more importantly, philosophically, it presumes that there's a benign, perfectly smart, perfectly fair genius in some form of some bureaucrat or policymaker that is going to dictate outcomes of how technology is used. That just by stating that, if you think that, I can't argue with you. I mean, it's a form of hubris historically and otherwise, and there's no argument against that kind of philosophy. The truth is we don't have that kind of vision. So, it doesn't mean everything's going to be happy, Pollyanna, everything's perfect. No. But the outcomes are net good for the economy and net good for most people, but not for everybody. And that's where social revolutions come from. That's where the Mamdanis of the world come from.
The point that Mike Rowe made, just I don't even know how many job openings or what the job needs are for the burgeoning energy sector to keep up with the technological advancement. You wrote recently about that, what the future of energy looks like concurrent with the AI revolution, and what's your sort of best thumbnail on it?
Well, we're creating a boom in demand for skilled trades to build data centers. So this, you heard in the news, the big Pennsylvania Energy AI Summit that the president held with a bunch of cabinet officers. And so $90 billion alone, I think, was committed to building infrastructure, which is data centers and power plants in Pennsylvania. Here's the irony. So you build the data centers, you need electricians, welders, people can drive trucks. I mean, these things are built out of steel and concrete. I mean, never mind the chips you fill up with. These are giant buildings, construction trades. You have to have copper wires, and people can pull cables. So the data centers themselves are going up to skilled trades that are exactly the same skilled trades as the power plants, which are net new. There's a boom on need. And those are the same people that Amazon needs to hire to work in building their warehouses and operate their warehouses, and the same people that FedEx and UPS wants to hire to drive trucks and handle their infrastructure. So the good news here in the shortage is it means booming wages and opportunities for anybody who wants to chase that domain. But the shortage is spread across every industry. It's probably the single biggest impediment to fueling the next decade of growth. I think it's going to solve itself, by the way. If you look at the data showing the increase of young men and women applying to go into the apprenticeship skilled trades, if you look at the number of high schools, to Mike Rowe's point, that have shop classes again, it's booming. I mean, I love shop class. I mean, I'm a physicist, but so that's kind of a theoretical domain, but an awful lot of scientists like using their hands like I did.
Mm-hmm.
I love shop class. Shop classes went away. I thought that was a tragedy and a travesty. They're coming back. So, in the short term, it's going to be tough. In the medium term, I think this gets solved rapidly. And it doesn't get solved with government saying, here's how you train next generation skilled trades. It gets solved by looking at what government is doing to impede the ability of private markets to help in the training and the upskilling of all the people who want to be in these trades. And again, I'll say it again, it's not just you're going to be a welder on the front line. Businesses that have welders, most of their employees are not doing the welding. They're in the business of managing everything around the infrastructure. AI will help them, and thank goodness it will help them because there aren't enough people to hire.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to characterize, so this is in the form of a question. So, I mean, is it your view that a lot of the concerns that are expressed about creative destruction, about misinformation with, the Groks and the other AI online learning language models and so forth, that the real overriding concern about the AI revolution is that actually central planners are too heavy-handed and impede the development?
Yeah, I mean that you nailed it. That's my real concern. Here's how two things could be possible simultaneously, and two things are the case simultaneously. Much about AI is being overhyped, silly stuff. The Terminator apocalypse,
right,
Matrix,
right.
all that. There's a lot of goofy things being said by otherwise smart people about AI. A lot of hype, and it's even possible and very likely equity values in some of the AI plays are overhyped in the bubble. But it's also possible and true that it is simultaneously the case that AI is a really big deal. It's really consequential. It's going to make a big difference, and a positive one with the penumbra of things that we won't like always. I mean, the railroad era, when it boomed, I mean, there are very few times in history where you have a comparable revolution. And when it's happened, you get both. You get hype. The railroad scams and a stock market to build out the rail era are epic back in the 19th century. And that doesn't mean that the railroads weren't consequential. Those who've studied history know that the railroad era changed the economic face of America. We went from an agricultural to an industrial society, largely because of what the railroads and their infrastructures represented. So it was a huge deal. It was a very good thing that happened to the country and to the world. But it was disruptive, and it generated bubbles and hype as well. We're there again, and maybe to be fair to people who are really anxious, when they say this time it's different, yes, it is. It's different in this way. We lived through an interregnum period of largely stagnant productivity growth, rather relatively low economic growth for the last at least 2 or 3 decades. And so for most people who are alive and well and can vote, paying attention, it feels different now. Well, it is. I think Ken Langone was on Squawk Box this week talking about where we are, talking about Trump, but talking about the economy. And he said something that I said and wrote in my book, The Cloud Revolution. He said he's really, really excited about the future now. This is the most exciting time to live. He just turned 90. He said, I wish I could live another 90 years to watch how this is going to play out. This is a great time to be alive and young and in a booming economy. So he's gone from a mild bear to a perma-bull on economic growth, and not because of Trump. He thinks Trump has helped. unlocked by pulling in regulations, but because of where we are technologically. They talked about AI, and I have to say I was thrilled to hear him say many of these things that I the kind of ideas that I'm peddling here. Great to, and he's not a tech guy, right? He's the great builder of Home Depot. He was the co-founder.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and young intellectually too, 90, but still forward-looking. Mark Mills, founder and executive director of the National Center for Energy Analytics. Mark, thanks as always for your time. Appreciate it.
Great to be on. Thanks for having me back. Take care.
Thank you. And Mark Mills joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Chicagoland traffic. The Ike, the Stevenson, the dreaded 294. You sitting in traffic is not time well spent. Time is money.
Oh, come on, man. What's the slowdown for?
Especially when you're trying to do your own company deliveries.
What is happening up there? I got things to deliver.
But instead of sitting